Did you know that some of Hollywood's most iconic black stars carried their deepest truths in silence for decades? Behind the fame, the red carpets, and the flashing cameras were powerful love stories the world was never meant to see. From a legendary blues singer whose soulful lyrics hinted at a forbidden love for women, to a trailblazing civil rights icon who fought for justice while quietly belonging to the LGBTQ+ community, these legends shaped history while hiding pieces of their hearts. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on 25 of the oldest black LGBTQ+ celebrities in Hollywood, pioneers who lit up the stage while keeping their most personal truths in the shadows. Paul Winfield wasn't just a talented actor, he was a trailblazer. Best known for his powerful roles in the 1972 film Sounder and the groundbreaking TV miniseries Roots, Winfield carved out a legendary career at a time when opportunities for black actors were scarce. His portrayal in Sounder earned him an Academy Award nomination for Best Actor, making him one of the few black men of his era to receive such a prestigious honor. With his deep, commanding voice and striking presence, Winfield brought unforgettable characters to life in film and television. From Star Trek, The Next Generation to guest spots on The Simpsons, he always left a lasting impression. He often gravitated toward roles that carried weight, dramatic, historical, and deeply human stories that reflected both struggle and strength. But off-screen, Paul Winfield lived a quiet, private life. Due to the societal pressures of his time, he kept his personal life largely out of the spotlight. For 3 decades, he shared a deeply devoted partnership with architect Charles Gillen Jr., beginning in 1972. Their bond remained strong until tragedy struck. Gillen passed away from bone cancer on March 5, 2002. Winfield was devastated. Just 2 years later, on March 7, 2004, he passed away from a heart attack at the age of 62. Though gone, their love endures. They now rest side by side at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Los Angeles, a quiet testament to a bond that defied time and society's expectations. Ethel Waters was more than just a trailblazing singer and actress. She was a force of nature who shattered barriers in the 1920s with her unmatched talent and charisma. But behind the curtain of her rising fame was a deeply personal and often overlooked love story. During her early years in Harlem, Waters met a gifted dancer named Ethel Williams. Their connection was instant, so powerful in fact, that they became known simply as the Two Ethels. On stage, they were electric. Williams would open their act with a fiery dance number, igniting the crowd before Waters took the spotlight with her unforgettable voice. Offstage, their bond was just as strong. Waters even helped Williams land a job at the cabaret, and soon, the two were inseparable, touring the country, sharing a home in Harlem, and building a life together in the shadows of a society that wasn't ready to accept who they really were. At a time when LGBTQ+ relationships had to remain hidden, their partnership was quietly powerful. To the public, they were professional collaborators. But behind closed doors, they were much more. Their love was real, deep, private, and resilient in the face of social stigma. But that chapter came to a heartbreaking close when Williams chose to walk away, not just from their relationship, but from show business entirely, to marry a man. The split left Waters devastated. It marked a painful turning point in her personal life, yet she never let it stop her. With unmatched resilience, she pressed forward, rising higher in the entertainment world and securing her place in history as one of the most iconic performers of her time. Mom's Mabie, born Loretta Mary Aiken on March 19, 1894, wasn't just a comedian, she was a revolution in a house dress. Long before the world was ready for her, she took the stage as one of the first openly gay comedians in America, using humor as both a shield and a sword. In an era when being black, gay, and a woman was a triple strike in the eyes of society, moms dared to be all three and thrive. On stage, she portrayed a toothless, wisecracking grandmother in oversized clothes, delivering punchlines with perfect timing. But behind the laughs was a sharp social critic, unafraid to tackle taboo topics like racism, gender roles, and injustice, topics others wouldn't dare mention. Her character made people feel at ease, but her message hit home. Offstage, Moms was a completely different presence. dressing in a gender nonconforming style that blurred the lines and challenged expectations. Some even affectionately called her Mr. Moms, a nickname she wore with pride. She refused to hide who she was, and in doing so, paved the way for generations of performers who came after her. In a world that tried to silence her, Moms Mabie used laughter to speak louder. And somehow, in the face of adversity, she turned her truth into a legacy that still echoes through comedy today. James Baldwin wasn't just a writer, he was a fearless truth-teller, a voice that echoed through the halls of American history with power, passion, and purpose. Born on August 2, 1924 in Harlem, New York, Baldwin rose from a difficult childhood to become one of the most influential literary and social voices of the 20th century. He tackled the tough topics others were afraid to touch: race, sexuality, identity, and injustice, with unflinching honesty and poetic brilliance. His debut novel, Go Tell It on the Mountain, 1953, drew deeply from his own life, painting a vivid portrait of faith, pain, and self-discovery in the Black American experience. Just 2 years later, he released Notes of a Native Son, a searing collection of essays that exposed the brutal realities of racism in America. In 1956, Baldwin broke even more ground with Giovanni's Room, a bold and tender novel about homosexuality, decades ahead of its time. But Baldwin didn't stop there. In 1963, he delivered a literary lightning bolt with The Fire Next Time, warning America of the explosive consequences of racial injustice. Then came If Beale Street Could Talk, 1974, a poignant love story wrapped in the harsh truth of racial inequality, a novel that would later find new life on the big screen in 2018. Beyond the page, Baldwin was a powerful force in the civil rights movement. He marched, he spoke, he challenged the system head-on, even debating conservative figures like William F. Buckley Jr. on national television. Though he eventually moved to France to escape the relentless grip of American racism, Baldwin never stopped writing about the struggle for justice back home. He never stopped fighting. Through every book, every speech, every sentence, James Baldwin reminded the world that silence is never an option in the face of oppression, and that the pen, when wielded with truth, can be the most powerful weapon of all. Audrey Lord wasn't just a writer, she was a force of nature. A poet, essayist, and fearless activist, she used her voice to challenge racism, sexism, and the silencing of LGBTQ+ lives. Born on February 18, 1934, in New York City to Caribbean parents from Grenada, Lord grew up learning that her words had power, and she used them with precision and passion. From the start, her writing confronted the complex intersections of race, gender, and sexuality. Her debut poetry collection, The First Cities, 1968, gave readers a glimpse into her fierce intellect and unshakable sense of identity. By the time she published Cole in 1976, she was boldly declaring what it meant to be both Black and feminist in a world that often refused to acknowledge either. One of her most celebrated works, The Black Unicorn, 1978, drew from African mythology and spiritual traditions, weaving them into poetry that was both personal and political. And in Zami, A New Spelling of My Name, 1982, Lord created a new genre she called biomythography, blending autobiography and myth to tell the story of her life as a Black lesbian woman navigating love, identity, and resistance. But it was her 1984 collection Sister Outsider that solidified her legacy as a radical truth-teller. Through essays and speeches, Lord challenged systems of oppression and demanded that feminism make space for all women, not just the privileged few. In 1978, she was diagnosed with breast cancer, a moment that would lead to yet another groundbreaking work, The Cancer Journals, 1980. In it, she shattered the silence around illness, exposing how society treats the sick, especially women of color, with shame and invisibility. Lord didn't just write about change, she made it happen. She co-founded Kitchen Table, Women of Color Press, a groundbreaking publishing house dedicated to lifting up the voices of Black and minority women writers. Through every word she wrote and every cause she championed, Audrey Lord made one thing clear: silence was never an option. Mabel Hampton was more than a dancer, more than a singer, she was a force of truth, talent, and trailblazing courage. Born on May 2, 1902, in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, her early life was anything but easy. Her mother died when Mabel was just a baby, and by the age of 7, her grandmother, the only family she knew, had also passed. She was sent to live with relatives in New York City, but their cruelty drove her to run away. It was a family in New Jersey who finally opened their hearts and gave her the love she had long been denied. By the 1920s, Mabel had found her rhythm in Harlem, right in the heart of the Harlem Renaissance, a golden era when black music, art, and culture shook the world awake. She lit up the stage as a dancer and singer in venues like the Garden of Joy and the legendary Lafayette Theater, performing alongside icons like Gladys Bentley and Mom's Mabie, women who, like her, broke barriers and redefined entertainment. Then in 1932, Mabel met the woman who would change her life, Lillian B. Foster. The two built a home and a life together in the Bronx, sharing 46 beautiful years filled with love, laughter, and fierce pride. At a time when being openly LGBTQ+ was dangerous, Mabel lived out loud, unashamed, and unafraid. In her later years, she became a passionate activist. She played a key role in founding the Lesbian Herstory Archives, preserving the powerful and often overlooked stories of lesbian lives, especially those of black women. At the 1984 New York City Pride Parade, Mabel stood tall and declared, "I, Mabel Hampton, have been a lesbian all my life, for 82 years, and I am proud of myself and my people." Her legacy is one of resilience, joy, and unshakable pride. We've seen legends rise from the shadows, but did you know that one of the greatest black entertainers in history may have quietly shared same-gender love in secret? Keep watching, because what comes next might just change everything. Dorothy Dandridge wasn't just a star, she was a trailblazer. As one of the first black women to break through Hollywood's rigid color lines, she rose to fame with undeniable grace and talent. Her unforgettable performance in Carmen Jones, 1954, earned her a historic Oscar nomination for Best Actress, making her a symbol of hope and progress in a deeply segregated industry. But behind the red carpet and bright lights, Dorothy's personal life was marked by heartbreak and complexity. In 1942, she married famed dancer Harold Nicholas, and together they had a daughter, Carolyn. Yet the marriage was troubled and ultimately ended in divorce by 1951. Years later, in 1959, she tied the knot with Jack Dennison, but that union, too, crumbled. Throughout the 1950s, she also had a passionate but complicated relationship with director Otto Preminger, though they never made it official. Over the years, rumors swirled about Dorothy's sexuality, with some speculating that she may have had relationships with both men and women. Still, no definitive evidence has ever surfaced. Her confirmed romances were with men. Interestingly, her mother, Ruby Dandridge, lived openly in a long-term relationship with a woman named Geneva Williams, who also helped raise Dorothy. Dorothy Dandridge lived a life of beauty, brilliance, and quiet battles. A woman ahead of her time, navigating fame, love, and identity in a world not ready for her shine. Bessie Smith wasn't just a blues singer, she was a force of nature. Crowned the Empress of the Blues, her voice could shake the walls and stir the soul. Bold, brash, and unapologetically herself, Bessie broke barriers both on and off the stage. While her music lit up the charts, her personal life was just as fearless. In a time when silence was survival, Bessie dared to live openly as a bisexual woman, something almost unheard of in the 1920s. She married security guard Jack G. in 1923, but their union was far from harmonious. Jealousy, infidelity, and resentment plagued their relationship. Jack couldn't handle Bessie's rising fame, or the fact that she loved both men and women. Things fell apart completely when Bessie discovered his affair with another singer, Gertrude Saunders, leading to their separation in 1929. Among her many romances, one of the most passionate was with Lillian Simpson, a chorus dancer in her show. Their love burned bright, but in a world that rejected same-sex relationships, it had to stay hidden in the shadows. Still, Bessie never muted who she was. Her music overflowed with raw emotion, love, lust, heartbreak, and freedom. In her daring track It's Dirty But Good, she even sang about women who didn't care for men, boldly hinting at desires society tried to silence. Bessie Smith lived out loud in a world that wanted her quiet. And that's exactly what made her legendary. Ma Rainey wasn't just a pioneer, she was a powerhouse. Often hailed as the mother of the blues, her booming voice and fearless presence carved a space for her in music history that no one could ignore. Born Gertrude Pridgett on April 26, 1886, in Columbus, Georgia, she began singing in her teens and quickly rose to fame with her raw, soul-stirring performances that spoke straight to the heart. But Ma Rainey wasn't only bold in her music, she was bold in life. At a time when society demanded silence and conformity, Rainey was openly bisexual, defying the norms with unapologetic pride. Her 1928 hit, Prove It On Me, wasn't just a song. It was a statement. Went out last night with a crowd of my friends, they must have been women, 'cause I don't like no men. She sang with a smirk that echoed through time. She didn't just challenge expectations, she crushed them. It's true I wear a collar and tie, she added, bending gender roles long before the world was ready. And her boldness didn't end on stage. In 1925, Ma Rainey was arrested for throwing an all-female party, an event that scandalized the public but also spotlighted her refusal to live by anyone else's rules. Her friend and fellow blues legend Bessie Smith, who deeply admired Rainey, bailed her out. Because even in trouble, Ma Rainey had the kind of loyalty and respect that only legends command. Billie Holiday wasn't just a jazz legend, she was a voice that could break your heart and heal it in the same breath. Her haunting tone, raw emotion, and unforgettable presence made her one of the greatest jazz singers the world has ever known. But behind the spotlight was a life full of pain, passion, and secrets, especially when it came to love. One of the most intriguing chapters in her story revolves around her close bond with actress Tallulah Bankhead. In the late 1940s, the two women were inseparable, and whispers swirled that their connection went far beyond friendship. Billie even mentioned Bankhead in her autobiography Lady Sings the Blues, hinting at the depth of their relationship. But the truth came at a cost. When Bankhead discovered she was named in the book, she panicked. In an era when same-sex relationships were taboo and dangerous to one's career, she threatened legal action to protect her reputation. Billie, heartbroken, penned a letter to her, pleading, disappointed, and asking her to reconsider. It was a painful reminder of the times they lived in. Love between women had to hide in the shadows, even when it burned brightly. Still, Bankhead was no ordinary woman. Known for defying convention and embracing chaos, she once famously called herself ambisextrous, a cheeky declaration of her interest in both men and women. She was bold, rebellious, and fearless, except, it seems, when it came to publicly acknowledging the woman who may have loved her most. The relationship between Billie Holiday and Tallulah Bankhead remains one of Hollywood's most debated secrets, layered in love, scandal, and silence. Their story was so compelling, it even found its way into the 2021 film The United States vs. Billie Holiday, offering a glimpse into a bond that defied norms, and still captivates us to this day. Josephine Baker wasn't just a performer, she was a revolution draped in feathers and drenched in spotlight. Born in America but destined for global stardom, she found her true stage in France, where she became one of the most electrifying entertainers of her time. With her daring dances, glittering costumes, and unapologetic flair, Baker dazzled audiences while fearlessly fighting for civil rights and racial equality. Though she was famously married multiple times, some historians believe her love life was far more complex and far more private. Whispers of romantic ties to women have followed her legacy for decades. One of those rumored loves was Clara Smith, a powerful blues singer. Some biographers suggest their bond went beyond friendship, hinting at a deeper connection during the early stages of Baker's career. She was also incredibly close to Ada Bricktop Smith, a fiery performer who owned one of Paris's most iconic nightclubs. Jean-Claude Baker, one of Josephine's adopted sons, later revealed that the two women shared a romantic relationship in their youth. The rumors didn't end there. Baker was also linked to legendary women like Mexican painter Frida Kahlo and French writer Colette, suggesting that her heart defied convention, just like everything else about her. From jazz icons to blues queens, Black LGBTQ+ artists have left an undeniable mark on music history. But Josephine Baker? She didn't just live boldly, she sang about her love for women out loud, shaking up the world with every note. Billy Strayhorn wasn't just a gifted jazz composer, he was a quiet revolutionary who helped shape the sound of an era. Born in 1915 in Dayton, Ohio, and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Strayhorn discovered his love for music early on. Trained in classical piano, he soon began writing his own songs, blending elegance with emotion in a way few others could. His life changed forever in 1938 when he met the legendary Duke Ellington. That encounter sparked a lifelong creative partnership. Strayhorn didn't just join Ellington's band, he became its heartbeat. He penned some of Ellington's most iconic works, including Take the A Train, Chelsea Bridge, and the hauntingly beautiful Lush Life. More than just a composer, Strayhorn was an arranger, a pianist, and a visionary who helped shape the band's unmistakable sound. Ellington once described him as his right arm, left arm, and the eyes in the back of his head, a powerful tribute to the man behind the music. Strayhorn also lived his truth at a time when doing so wasn't easy. He was openly gay in an era when society was far from accepting. Yet he never hid who he was. His peers respected him not just for his brilliance, but for his authenticity. He shared a loving relationship with fellow musician Aaron Bridgers, and the two were partners until Bridgers relocated to Paris in 1947. Billy Strayhorn's story is one of quiet strength, bold artistry, and timeless legacy. A man who lived with courage and left behind a sound that still echoes today. Gladys Bentley wasn't just ahead of her time, she was decades beyond it. Born on August 12, 1907, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, she shattered expectations from the very start. While most girls were being taught to wear dresses and mind their manners, young Gladys gravitated toward boys' clothes and dreamed of a different kind of life. She knew she was different, and so did her family. But instead of shrinking herself to fit in, she made a bold choice. At just 16, she packed up, left home, and headed for New York City, searching for freedom. And she found it, under the pulsing lights of Harlem's underground speakeasies during the roaring 1920s. With her booming voice, witty lyrics, and dapper tuxedos, Gladys Bentley captivated audiences at clubs like Harry Hansberry's Clam House and the Ubangi Club. She was magnetic, singing bluesy ballads with a twist, fearlessly rewriting lyrics to express her love for women. In a time when simply existing as an openly queer black woman was an act of rebellion, Gladys turned her truth into a spectacle no one could ignore. She became a star, revered by both black and white audiences, a central figure in the Harlem Renaissance, and a living symbol of unapologetic self-expression. But the world wasn't ready to hold space for someone like her forever. As the 1940s and 50s brought a harsher, more repressive era, the clubs closed and so did many doors. Gladys moved to Los Angeles, where success proved harder to grasp. Under the weight of intense discrimination, she felt the pressure to conform. In a heartbreaking turn, she publicly denied her sexuality, married a man, and claimed she had been cured, likely a desperate attempt to survive in a world that punished authenticity. Still, Gladys Bentley's legacy lives on, not just as a blues legend, but as a trailblazer who dared to live out loud when silence was the safer choice. Eartha Kitt wasn't just a singer, actress, or dancer, she was a force of nature. With a voice that purred like velvet and a presence that lit up every stage she touched, Kitt captivated the world with her fierce confidence and magnetic charm. Throughout her legendary career, she had high-profile relationships with men, including the iconic Orson Welles, who once called her the most exciting woman in the world. But behind the glamour, whispers lingered, rumors that Eartha may have also shared romantic bonds with women. While there's no concrete proof, what's undeniable is her unwavering support for the LGBTQ+ community. She stood proudly as an ally long before it was popular or safe to do so, championing equality and same-sex marriage not just as a political stance, but as a matter of human rights. In her words, "I support it because we're asking for the same thing. It's a civil rights thing, isn't it?" To Kitt, the LGBTQ+ community was family, kindred spirits who, like her, had been pushed to the margins of society. "We're all rejected people," she once said. "I am a rejected, oppressed person, and so I understand them." Though her romantic life mostly involved men, Eartha's deep empathy and fearless advocacy cemented her as a beloved icon within the LGBTQ+ world. She didn't just entertain, she used her voice to fight for justice, to uplift the unheard, and to remind us all that everyone deserves love, dignity, and a place to belong. Nina Simone wasn't just a singer, she was a force of nature. With a voice that could shake souls and lyrics that pierced through injustice, she became a fearless icon in the fight for civil rights. Her music wasn't just entertainment, it was a rallying cry for freedom, a defiant stand against racism, and a powerful plea for justice. In a time when silence was safer, Nina chose truth. Her personal life, however, was far from easy. She married twice, first to Don Ross in 1958, though that marriage quickly unraveled. Then in 1961, she wed Andrew Stroud, a New York police detective who later became her manager. Together, they had a daughter, Lisa Celeste, in 1962. But behind the scenes, their relationship was turbulent and controlling, ultimately ending in divorce by 1970. While all of Simone's public relationships were with men, whispers of her sexuality have lingered for years. Some believe Nina may have been bisexual, and much of that speculation stems from her profound bond with playwright Lorraine Hansberry, the brilliant mind behind A Raisin in the Sun. The two shared more than just intellectual admiration. Simone spoke often of Hansberry's influence on her political awakening. Their conversations were intimate, revolutionary, and charged with purpose. To some, it seemed like more than just friendship. It felt like a deep, unspoken love. Bayard Rustin was a force behind the scenes, a visionary who helped shape the soul of the civil rights movement. Born on March 17, 1912, in West Chester, Pennsylvania, Rustin was raised by his grandparents, who instilled in him the values of peace, justice, and compassion. His grandmother, a devout Quaker and active member of the NAACP, taught him early on that real change begins with nonviolence and unwavering conviction. In the 1940s, Rustin joined forces with Philip Randolph, demanding the desegregation of the U.S. military and defense industries. Though a planned march was ultimately canceled, their pressure worked. President Franklin D. Roosevelt signed an executive order banning racial discrimination in defense jobs. It was a major win, and Rustin was just getting started. By the 1950s, he became a trusted advisor to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., introducing him to the philosophy of nonviolent resistance, a tactic that would become the heartbeat of the movement. And in 1963, Rustin stepped into his most pivotal role yet, organizing the historic March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. It was there, on that monumental day, that Dr. King delivered his legendary "I Have a Dream" speech to the world. But while Rustin helped orchestrate one of the greatest movements in American history, he often remained in the shadows. Because he was openly gay in a time when that alone could overshadow everything else. Some civil rights leaders feared his sexuality would be used to discredit their cause. So Rustin, despite his brilliance, was kept out of the spotlight. Still, he never stopped working. He never stopped fighting. Bayard Rustin may not have always stood at the front of the march, but make no mistake, he helped pave the road. James Leslie Daniels, the hidden icon of Harlem's golden age. James Leslie Daniels was more than just a cabaret singer. He was a trailblazer, a style icon, and a vital heartbeat of the Harlem Renaissance. Born on November 23, 1907, in Laredo, Texas, and raised in Little Rock, Arkansas, Daniels would go on to make his mark in some of the most iconic venues in Harlem and beyond. He began his career performing in Harlem's lively nightclub scene, first taking the stage at the legendary Ha in 1933. His smooth voice and magnetic presence soon caught international attention, leading him to Europe, where he dazzled audiences in Monte Carlo and London. But it was back in Harlem where Daniels cemented his legacy. In 1939, he opened Jimmy Daniels nightclub at 114 West 116th Street, a groundbreaking venue that defied the norms of the time. His club wasn't just about music, it was a safe haven where people of all races, backgrounds, and sexualities could come together. From European royalty and Manhattan's elite to everyday Harlemites, everyone was welcome. He ran the club until 1942, when he stepped away to serve in World War II. But even war couldn't dim his light. After returning, Daniels rejoined New York's nightlife, becoming the star performer and master of ceremonies at Bon Soir, a vibrant Greenwich Village hotspot known for breaking social boundaries. It was there, in the smoky glow of that club, that a young Barbra Streisand would begin her rise to fame. Daniels' life was just as colorful off stage. He had notable relationships, including a romantic bond with renowned architect Philip Johnson in 1934. He was also linked to filmmaker Kenneth McPherson and fashion designer Rex Madsen. Later in life, Daniels shared a deep friendship with blues legend Alberta Hunter, standing by her side and helping care for her in her later years. Though often left out of mainstream history, James Daniels was a pioneer, an artist who lived boldly, loved freely, and reshaped the cultural fabric of his time. Count T. Cullen was one of the most celebrated voices of the Harlem Renaissance, a gifted poet, novelist, and playwright whose words still echo through history. Born on May 30, 1903, most likely in Louisville, Kentucky, Cullen discovered his love for poetry early on. By the age of 14, while attending DeWitt Clinton High School, he was already crafting verses that hinted at the brilliance to come. He later attended New York University, graduating in 1925, the same year he published his groundbreaking debut collection, Color. It was a bold exploration of race, identity, and what it meant to be Black in America. More masterpieces followed, including Copper's Son in 1927 and The Ballad of the Brown Girl in 1928. His poetry often danced between themes of love, racial struggle, and inner conflict, and many believe it held subtle reflections of his sexuality, quietly woven between the lines. Cullen's personal life was just as layered. In 1928, he married Yolanda Dubois, the daughter of civil rights icon W.E.B. Du Bois. But the marriage was short-lived, ending in divorce just 2 years later, after Cullen reportedly confessed his attraction to men. He shared a deep and lifelong bond with Harold Jackman, a teacher and model, sparking ongoing speculation that their connection was more than platonic. In 1940, Cullen married Ida Mae Robertson, and they remained together until his untimely passing in 1946. His legacy, however, lives on, his pen having carved a place for him among the literary giants of Black history. Up next, the groundbreaking story of a trailblazing congresswoman and a fearless trans activist who shook the halls of power. Ernestine Exin was a fearless trailblazer whose voice helped shape the fight for both LGBTQ+ rights and the empowerment of Black women. At a time when simply being openly gay could put your life at risk, she stood tall as a leader in the New York chapter of the Daughters of Bilitis, the first lesbian civil rights organization in the United States. In an era when few dared to speak out, Exin became one of the very few Black women to publicly protest for LGBTQ+ equality. She marched in the annual Reminder pickets, courageous demonstrations demanding equal rights for queer Americans, and in many of those protests, she was not only one of the only women present, but often the only Black woman there. Exin believed that the struggle for justice wasn't isolated. Civil rights, women's rights, and LGBTQ+ rights were deeply connected, and they had to be fought for together. Her passion didn't stop with LGBTQ+ advocacy. In the 1970s, she became active in the Black feminist movement, joining Black Women Organized for Action, a powerful group that championed equality and opportunity for Black women. Exin knew that Black women, especially those within the LGBTQ+ community, faced unique and overlapping layers of discrimination. She fought to make sure their voices were heard in both the feminist and civil rights movements. Barbara Jordan wasn't just a politician, she was a trailblazer, a voice of justice, and a force for change. Born in 1936 in Houston, Texas, Jordan rose from humble beginnings to shatter barriers that had long kept African Americans and women on the sidelines of American politics. In 1966, she made history as the first Black woman elected to the Texas State Senate. Just 6 years later, she broke even more ground, becoming the first African American woman from the South elected to the U.S. Congress. With a commanding voice and unmatched eloquence, Jordan quickly earned national respect. One of her most unforgettable moments came during the 1974 Watergate hearings. Her stirring defense of the U.S. Constitution and call for justice echoed across the nation and cemented her as a moral compass in a time of crisis. Though she never publicly addressed her sexuality, Barbara Jordan shared nearly 3 decades of her life with her devoted partner, Nancy Earle. Their quiet but enduring bond stood as a powerful testament to love, loyalty, and partnership behind the scenes of a remarkable public life. Essex Hemphill wasn't just a poet. He was a fearless voice for the unheard. Born in 1957 in Washington, D.C., Hemphill rose to become one of the most powerful and unapologetic figures in Black LGBTQ+ literature. Through raw, courageous poetry and essays, he tackled the harsh realities of racism, homophobia, love, identity, and the often invisible pain of being a Black gay man in America. His words didn't tiptoe, they roared. In works like Conditions, 1986, and Ceremonies, 1992, Hemphill spoke truths many were too afraid to say out loud. His poetry also made its way into groundbreaking films and documentaries, including Tongues Untied, 1989, a powerful piece that explored the lives and voices of Black gay men. But Hemphill wasn't just a writer, he was a warrior. He stood boldly against homophobia, racism, and the government's silence during the AIDS crisis. For Hemphill, visibility wasn't just personal, it was political. He believed Black gay men had every right to be part of the broader fight for civil rights and justice. His legacy? A movement. A mirror. A megaphone. His words didn't just challenge society, they inspired a generation to speak, to fight, and to be seen. Alice Walker isn't just a writer, she's a force of nature. Born in 1944 in the heart of Georgia, she rose from humble beginnings to become one of the most powerful voices in American literature. Her words have never shied away from the hard truths, racism, gender inequality, and the deep, often overlooked pain of Black women. In 1982, she released her groundbreaking novel The Color Purple, a raw and unforgettable story of love, trauma, and survival. The book didn't just win the Pulitzer Prize, it shook the world. It became a cultural milestone, later adapted into an Oscar-nominated film and a Broadway sensation. Its exploration of race, abuse, and LGBTQ+ identity sparked conversations that had long been silenced. But Walker's courage doesn't stop at the page. She's lived her truth boldly, speaking out for LGBTQ+ rights and advocating for love in all its forms. To her, love is about soul-deep connection, not gender. Though she's had relationships with both men and women, including a widely discussed connection with singer Tracy Chapman, Walker has never felt the need to box her life into labels. She believes in freedom, in truth, and in living authentically, no matter what the world has to say. Robin Roberts isn't just a beloved face on television. She's a trailblazer, a fighter, and an inspiration to millions. Best known as the warm and steady co-anchor of Good Morning America, Robin's journey to national fame began in Mississippi, where she was born in 1960. Before she ever sat behind a news desk, she was lighting up the basketball court as a college star and making waves as a rising sports reporter. But it was her grace, authenticity, and unwavering strength that truly earned her a place in America's heart. In 2013, Robin courageously shared a deeply personal truth. She had been in a long-term relationship with Amber Lane, a massage therapist she had quietly loved since 2005. Though she had kept their relationship private for years, her coming out was met with overwhelming love and support from fans and the LGBTQ+ community alike. Robin Roberts has never shied away from life's toughest battles. In 2007, she faced breast cancer head-on, and in 2012, she endured a rare and life-threatening blood disorder. But through it all, she chose to be open, to be real, and to turn her pain into purpose. By sharing her story with the world, Robin not only inspired countless others to keep fighting, but reminded us all of the power of living authentically and loving fearlessly. Sylvia Ru is more than a filmmaker. She's a fearless voice for justice, a passionate writer, and a trailblazing activist who spent decades challenging the silence around homophobia in the Black community. Born in 1947, Sylvia dedicated her life to fighting for LGBTQ+ rights, racial equality, and gender justice, long before it was safe or popular to do so. One of her most powerful contributions is the groundbreaking documentary All God's Children. This film bravely explores the tension between faith and sexuality, shining a light on how homophobia impacts Black families and churches. But more importantly, it delivers a powerful message. You can be LGBTQ+ and still be deeply spiritual, proud, and worthy of love. It sparked conversations that many were too afraid to start. Conversations about acceptance, healing, and the true meaning of faith. Through her work as a speaker and writer, Sylvia has continued to uplift voices that are often ignored. She's been a tireless advocate for dignity, inclusion, and respect, reminding the world that everyone, regardless of race, gender, or sexuality, deserves to be seen and celebrated. Her legacy is one of courage and compassion. Because of her, countless people finally feel like they belong. Which part of Sylvia's story moved you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. And if this story inspired you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful journeys like this one. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.